spoilerios about spoilerios. Let's roll.
Hi, I'm Sean Baker. Welcome to another edition of Evolution of the Arm. So episode 6 just dropped. I'm floored, so let's get right into it. So we spend the first 13 minutes of the episode with more Coop as Dougie. And watching this, it just strikes me how incredibly sad this storyline is getting. And also the sadness makes me correlate it to another of Lynch's works. It reminds me of Rita in Mulholland Drive. We've got Coop and Rita, okay, both are amnesiacs, both are working their way through other people's lives, getting small clues as to who they were, some big revelation just on the outskirts, they can never quite reach it. So we go right from that to Albert. Albert's in a car, he's driving. It's great to see him in kind of a non-professional fashion, even though he is en route, we assume, to finding the person him and Gordon had spoken about needing to see Cooper. So Nancy Kills You is one of my viewers, and I just have to say, she so confidently posted a comment that said it's going to be Laura Dern as Diane, and boom, ladies and gentlemen, we get, for the first time ever, Diane Evans, played by Laura Dern, and we get her for just a minute, and then she's gone, and we want more, and we don't, and it's frustrating, but it's so much fun, and it's what's so great about Twin Peaks. Now, we go back to Twin Peaks. You notice we're getting more and more of the town as we kind of get into the meat of the series, and we have Red, which is Balthazar Getty's character, and Richard Horne. So this scene, first of all, makes me think that Richard Horne is not the heavy that I thought he was after he was introduced last week. He seems like a more dangerous, more high Leo or Bobby from back in the original series. Red has just given Richard some of this drug. Now, this is the designer Chinese drug that was mentioned in one of the earlier episodes, thanks to another viewer that pointed that out. I'd forgotten about that. Obviously, Richard has just snorted this and it's acting on him. And so Red reminds me in this scene of a classic Lynch villain. If you get, let's say, Frank Booth on one hand and the cowboy from Mulholland Drive on the other. One is very overtly violent. One's violence is implied, but nonetheless very threatening, right? Very subdued. Red is kind of in the middle here, but what he's doing, these violent pantomimes he keeps doing with his hands, it's unsettling both to us as the viewer, but also to Richard. And we see that this whole interaction while high is really working on him, and he's kind of being driven into like an altered state. And then Red starts doing this magic trick, and he's flipping a coin. At one point, the coin just stays in the air. This reminds me so much of the scene in the original series. Donna delivers Meals on Wheels to Mrs. Chalfont, and there's the whole creamed corn thing where do you see creamed corn on this plate, and then suddenly it's across the room in the grandson's hands, and she says, my grandson is studying magic. This Red's coin trick reminds me a lot of that. And I find myself wondering, so is this hovering coin, and then of course Richard takes it from his mouth as if it's, moved between them somehow, and then it disappears. Now, is this a perceptual trick of the drug that he's on, or does Red have some kind of unearthly quality about him? He seems to. I'd also like to note, now this is super conjecture, but it's fun. Again, that's what's so fun about Twin Peaks. Imagine if the drug isn't a designer Chinese drug, but something that's been distilled from the Black Lodge, right? So picture like the scorched engine oil being kind of parsed down and incorporated into a substance that people take, and then it gives them these lodge experiences, which could be, mistaken or confused with being high on a drug. So we go to the Fat Trout Trailer Park in Conelrad. I love seeing them. More on him in a minute. Then we go to the Double R Diner. Now I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but there's major talking points I want to hit. At the Double R, we get Heidi's laugh, and it's such a good sound, and it's also a little eerie because it's in the pilot and it's in the final episode in a scene that kind of repeats, and it always kind of created like a closed loop between the two episodes. We get Heidi and we get Shelley, and then we get this new character, Miriam. Now, why are we meeting Miriam, right? So, more on her in a minute. Now we go back to Conelrad. He's sitting in a park near the Double R, and he's staring at the sky and then watching this mother and son play like a game of catch-up, right? And so they're running and playing, and Carl's watching this. Now we start cutting between this sequence in the park and Richard driving, and the drug is working him into a frenzy. He's very upset about the way Red has condescended him. He gets to a point where he's driving recklessly. He sees there's multiple cars stopped at the stop sign. It's not moving. And he just goes around into oncoming traffic. Now, there's no traffic coming, but what, of course, happens is we're cutting back and forth. The mother and the son are making their way out from behind the first car stopped on their side of the road, and Richard just kills this kid, this little boy. And it's such a terrible scene. And it reminds me that Lynch is not always violent, but when David Lynch is violent, it's so violent. It's so visceral. Two things happen as fallout from this event. Miriam is standing outside the Double R. She's obviously just witnessed this, and Richard kind of slows down as he passes her and they make eye contact. Now she can identify him. I don't know if she knows him or not. She might, because he's Richard Horn. Maybe he's a bastard and, you know, she doesn't know who he is, but she can identify him. So I'm thinking Miriam is going to be getting a visit later. We'll see how that pans out for her. The other thing that happens is Conelrad has now seen all of this happen. He walks towards the mother holding her dead son, and he sees this gold cloud kind of float up from the boy's proximity. And it goes into the sky, and the camera follows it, and it goes towards the telephone wires. And then we see a telephone pole. It's the same telephone pole that I put a picture up of in the second episode of Evolution of the Arm. And it's the one from Fire Walk With Me with the numbers 324-8106 on it. We realize this is the same intersection. Don't know what it means, but the same intersection that the one-armed man accosted Leland and Laura in the car in that scene in Fire Walk With Me. So there's something about this intersection and this telephone pole. And now we see this gold cloud. Carl watches it kind of float up. Now it might dissipate in the clouds, kind of implying heaven, or there's a crackling sound from the wires too. I'm kind of getting maybe that this boy, if this is the soul or the essence of this boy, got absorbed into the electricity. I don't know. We still don't know how this stuff works. We may never, but it's interesting to note. All right, so now we go to Vegas. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here. First thing in Vegas is we go to Lucky 7 Insurance, and the elevator opens and we see Coop in the black suit, and it's just so good to see. I have to wonder if this is foreshadowing. I'll tell you why. A couple scenes later, we're going to go elsewhere in Vegas to Patrick Fischler's character, Duncan Todd. He's working on his laptop. A weird red square kind of eclipses the text he's working on. It's like a sign. He turns around, goes to a safe, pulls out a white envelope with a small black dot on it. A few scenes later, the same dot, or same envelope, is delivered under the door to Ike the Spike. Now, this is a dwarf hitman. So we see him take out these pictures. It's Lorraine and it's Dougie. Dougie, obviously Cooper. He goes through this weird ritualistic thing with his weapon, and then we go to Lorraine's office. Now, this is a woman that was worried because her hitmen had not killed Dougie yet. Ike kills his way through her office and then just savagely murders her. And what this does is remind us this dude is now going for Cooper. So now we've got a time crunch on Coop as Dougie. His journey has got to end. He's got to wake up because, you know, he may have been able to stumble through impressing Mullins, his boss, with his, scribblings on the documents that Mullins obviously interpreted somehow. If you have thoughts on this, please leave them in the comments, because he might have been able to stumble to success through that. He's not going to be able to stumble his way to surviving this little psychopath. So we've got a time lock. Now, last thing, we're going to go to the sheriff's station in Twin Peaks. Hawk is in the men's room. A coin rolls from his pocket, goes into a stall. He goes down, gets the coin, turns around, sees on the bottom of the door of the stall Nez Pierce. Now, this is a logo for who made the door, but it's also, if you've read Mark Frost's History of Twin Peaks, you know this is the tribe that the book starts with Lewis and Clark in the early exploratory days of America, and they meet the Nez Pierce tribe, and the owl ring is present, but also there's some lodge-like experiences. Now, this is the first direct bridge between Mark Frost's book and this show. Last thing, he pries open the door, and inside the door he finds, what does he find? Well, we don't know. It looks like diary pages. We're gonna have to wait, but my guess is these are the diary pages that Bob ripped from Laura's journal, and that Annie showed up in Fire Walk With Me and told Laura the good Dale is trapped in the lodge and can't get out. Write it in your diary. Now, is that what it is? We gotta wait till next week. All right, see you in the trees.